Netflix has just released a new documentary about the rise and fall of Juul, and I'm going to tell you 5 quick facts about why you should consider kicking your vaping habit. By the grace of Beyonce, I never have vaped myself because I have severe asthma, so I never even thought to start vaping. But I have so many dear friends, loved ones, and family members who are addicted to these products. Listen to this. As of February 2020, the CDC reported over 2,800 cases of e-cigarette or vaping product-associated lung injuries. The exact cause is still being studied, but a majority of the cases involved products containing THC. So whether you're doing it through Juul or through other substances, the Centers for Disease Control is sending a very strong message that lung injury is possible. When the founders of Juul first set out to revolutionize the world of smoking, I don't think they know or intended how popular their products would become amongst children and the negative health repercussions that they would have globally. As smokers themselves, their initial goal was to make smoking healthier. Robust research had come out that for years tobacco companies had lied to their consumers about products that were deadly, not only in their addictiveness, but in the way they harmed your lungs and ultimately led to death. The founders, who were friends at Stanford, posited in their thesis that by preserving the experience of smoking, which brought together friends, could be a relief after a long day, but getting rid of all of the negative things associated, the smell, the harms to your health, that perhaps they could revolutionize the space. But as has been widely written about, what they ended up doing was completely replicating the big tobacco playbook and getting a whole new generation addicted to vaping. Fact number 2, nicotine addiction and brain development from the U.S. Surgeon General's report on e-cigarettes use among youth and youth adults from 2016. Nicotine is addictive and can harm the developing brains of teens, kids, and fetuses. Its use during adolescence can affect learning, memory, and attention. When the founders got to Silicon Valley, there was a lot of excitement about their idea. After all, with a potential customer base of 1 billion people, 68% of whom, according to the documentary, wanted to kick their smoking habit, there was a need in the market that was not being addressed. After finding investors, they finally brought an e-cigarette to the market. The first models, known as Plume Model 1 and Plume Model 2, vastly different technology-wise and design-wise to the Juuls that we know today. Fact number 3, exposure to harmful substances. E-cigarette vapor contains harmful substances including nicotine, formaldehyde, and acrolein. Some of these have been linked to serious health issues, including respiratory and heart problems. This comes from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. When the first e-cigarette came to the market, they had a problem. Not only was their potential customer base already hooked on cigarettes, which they knew were bad for them and which they were trying to quit, but the new product they introduced did not hit as hard as cigarettes. Because they weren't actually burning the tobacco, the way that the nicotine went into the body was not as intense as a cigarette. And while the health effects were less, it wasn't enough to convert customers, especially because the design was cumbersome and it required you to have butane fuel in order to fill the cartridge which in the plume. The investors who had put up millions of dollars into this company were starting to get frustrated. Not only was the initial prototype taking so long to develop, but once it was released to the market, it didn't do very well. And as the documentary said, it was a total flop. The team went back to the drawing board, decided to embrace the public's growing acceptance of cannabis, shifting their focus from their original intention of converting smokers of tobacco cigarettes to e-cigarettes to now pushing these vaporizers, which were marketed as vaporizers for tobacco, but quickly became popular in cannabis communities. Fact number 4, cardiovascular issues. Some research suggests that vaping can increase heart rate and blood pressure, which can lead to a greater risk of cardiovascular issues. This comes from the Journal of the American Heart Association in 2017. Despite internal troubles, a dissatisfied board of investors, the PAX was successful, and it started to look like the company was potentially profitable again. While the company started to do better, their hardware was faltering. Users complained that pods were squirting juice into their mouth, leading to seriously unpleasant tastes. The solid sales of the packs were not enough to save them. They were starting to take on debt, and at the last minute, a Japanese tobacco company, something that the founders said they would never be involved in, they didn't want to be associated with big tobacco, offered $10 million of investment. While this investment set them up for a little while, the Japanese company did not like that the PAX was associated with cannabis use, and eventually it pulled out of the company. The $10 million was repaid to them. Some e-cigarette heating coils can leach metals such as lead, chromium, and nickel. When inhaled, these can pose serious health risks. The founders realized that if they wanted to be successful, they were going to have to completely change the design and functionality of what would eventually evolve into Juul that you know and likely despise. When it first hit the market, this new iteration of their product line was hailed as a huge advancement in e-cigarettes, a potentially industry-changing product. As the documentary notes, and as this writer from Wired specifically says within the documentary, he and many of his colleagues that wrote about these e-cigarettes believed that the Juul truly would help people stop smoking. He famously called the Juul the iPhone of e-cigarettes, a characterization that he greatly regrets. To launch the Juul in 2015, the company did what big tobacco companies have been doing for nearly 100 or more years. They recruited attractive, young influencers, models, actors, celebrities to come to their parties and tweet about, take pictures with, and promote their Juuls. These campaigns were broadly targeted for essentially doing exactly what big tobacco had always done, which was target youth and say, if you use our product, your lifestyle will increase. You will be happier. The men had truly lost their way. And despite the success of the Apple-coated vaporized campaign, I say Apple-coated because the visuals were very similar to the lifestyle campaigns that Apple has used to launch their products. Despite this successful campaign, even though it was very controversial, it essentially did what they wanted to do. They offered a bunch of free product and they got a bunch of free promo. And even though vendors weren't necessarily interested in new product adoption, slowly word of mouth on social media, from influencers to celebrities to college campuses, these things became completely everywhere, which lands us in the situation we all know about, the vaping crisis. I'm going to stop here because this video is getting really long, but like for part 2, let me know if you want a part 2, if you're interested to learn more, and I'm happy to share more with you. And please reach out for help if you need it. If you are addicted to vaping, please seek out professional medical help to detox. It is never too late to kick this. I even hesitate to use the word habit because it's an addiction. It's not your fault that you're addicted. These companies have predatory practices in order to make you addicted. Please, please, please seek out help and know that it is possible to quit.